There are no ladies here,
Only them.
only gentlemen. Some months ago, some of my friends and I got together and decided to launch an NGO based on the ancient Indian concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And we decided to give it the name of the Global Socio-Economic Foundation. A high-sounding name, but the objectives that we sought to achieve: number one, to promote art and culture; number two, to promote sustainable development, green energy, green transportation, eco-villages, eco-city; number three, to promote circular economy; number four, to promote health and wellness, yoga, meditation, sports and games, particularly for girls and women; number five, to promote spiritual and intellectual activity; number six, to strengthen governance, including corporate governance; number seven, to promote international brotherhood. Very lofty objectives and lofty vision and lofty aims. The founder members were 21. It included, apart from me, Justice Mukundakam Sharma, Mr. K. K. Agarwal, Dr. Mohan Kaul of London, Mr. K. J. Alphonse, who is expected to join shortly, Mr. Ashok Lavasa, who is now in Manila, Air Marshal Naresh Verma, who is expected to join any moment now, Mr. B. K. Chaudhary, Mr. Pradeep Agarwal, who is no more, unfortunately, Padma Bhushan Dr. Bindeshwar Pathak, Mr. Ashok Ogra, Mr. Jayant Mishra, Mr. Rajesh Mehta, Mr. Iskan Tail, Mr. Deepak Jain, Dr. Girish Sahni, Mr. R. K. Mittal, Mr. Sanjay Shavan, Mr. V. K. Modi, Mr. P. K. Gupta of the Sharda Group, and Mr. Rishi Mehta. In fact, Rajesh Mehta ji and Rishi Mehta ji have been carrying this NGO on their shoulders. And I would be failing in my duty not to congratulate them and to thank them. Our first event was on circular economy. The keynote speaker was Dr. Bindeshwar Pathak, who needs no introduction. The second event, which is today, is on towards better governance. And nobody better than Mr. N.N. Vohra, formerly Governor Jammu and Kashmir, to inaugurate it and lead the discussion. Mr. Vohra was earlier the Defense Secretary and the Home Secretary in the Government of India, and also served as the Principal Secretary to Prime Minister for some time before joining Srinagar and Jammu as Governor J&K, and he had the longest stint as Governor Jammu and Kashmir. He was the governor for more than 10 years. And I have been fortunate in having been associated with him in the Punjab cadre. So without spending any time, over to you, Mr. Vohra, to inaugurate it and to lead the discussion.
Friends, I'm indeed very privileged to I've been invited by my old friend, colleague, Mr. M.C. Gupta, to be here this afternoon. I had a very pressing personal commitment, family commitment, and he has kindly agreed that after I made my little contribution, that he's allowed me to lead. Now, on governance, we have Justice Sharma here today. He will give us a very fine perspective of how the apex court looks at issues of governance. But I would say in common parlance and how the ordinary person understands the word governance is how he's treated, how the citizen is treated in the country, how his aspirations, his needs, his demands are met, and how much satisfaction he and his or her family are able to achieve during the course of their lives. That is an individualistic point of view. But from the national, from the country's point of view, one is to see where the country stands in the Committee of Nations. If there are 200 countries or more in the world, there are many more today than there were earlier, then where does one's own country stand, whichever country that is? And that is testified by the nature of the achievements of the country in terms of economic growth, human growth, social development, overall development, per capita earnings, national reserves, health status, poverty status, unemployment status, and so on. In more recent times, to the indices around the world, they've added the nutritional status also, because as a measure of poverty, they've not in parity dollars. Measuring in terms of per capita creates other problems. So they look at the calories, the health status, the earning status, living status, shelter, home, safe water, employability, and so on. Now, one may say whatever one thinks about governance, but I give you a very small example. This neighboring country of ours in Southeast Asia, Singapore, is a small country, the size of more than Karol Bagh, tiny island. It became a developed country nearly 3 decades ago. How did it achieve the status of a developed country? It's all because of the vision, honesty, integrity, and hard work of 1 or 2 leaders. At the nation building stage, they came at that stage, and I more in mind Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. He is a great friend of India. He came to this institution also when I was working as a director. And that shows that whichever way you define governance, the test of the pudding is where have you taken your country in terms of basic prosperity, basic welfare, basic happiness, health, shelter, water, electricity, transport, employability, and so on and so forth. Now, I don't want to go into the hoary past, but would say that before we attained independence, we had a long period of suffering under the colonial masters. We were natives, we were slaves, your obedient servants. And then came the long struggle for independence. We had very tall leaders, and they sacrificed their personal lives, their family lives, their fortunes to wage the struggle. And foremost amongst them was the naked fakir, the great Mahatma Gandhi. And it's a great tragedy that he was assassinated soon after we gained freedom. Now, once freedom was around the corner, we set up the Constituent Assembly. In December 46, it had its first meeting. Worked very hard day and night for 3 years. In November 49, the Constituent Assembly adopted the Constitution, which was formally adopted by the country on 26 January 1950. Now, the people who drafted the Constitution were the best brains, the best intellects of the country, besides being the great, tall freedom fighters who gained freedom for our country. Our Constitution is perhaps the most exhaustive in the world. It is extensive, it is detailed, and as many commentators have said, it is a live document. It is not just a big dictionary book we refer to once in a while, but it's a live document. But why I'm referring to the Constituent Assembly and the constitution making is that if more of us knew about the Constitution, amongst the people, the populace, the bureaucracy, the public servants, and particularly amongst the political class, then perhaps we would make far speedier progress than we do. Because our Constitution, fortunately, gives us very good guidance on which direction to go, how to go, and what to avoid not being done at all. I say with great amount of regret, I have been in the service of the government in the state and the center. I've served in 6-7 states during the course of my career, that we have not followed the Constitution. We have not been true and loyal to the Constitution, to the dictates, the commands of the Constitution, either through ignorance or because we are indifferent to this great document. Now, the preamble to the Constitution, as you all know, and it is absurd for me to repeat it, that we as a people of India had decided to constitute ourselves into a sovereign, secular, socialist, democratic republic, and give to our people justice, social, economic, political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, religion, worship, and equality of status and opportunity. And through these modalities, we would promote fraternity amongst all our people in terms of individuals, dignity of individuals, in terms of the country, unity and integrity of the country. Now, these are all words we read here and there every now and then, but unfortunately, we don't believe in these various words and sentences which the preamble of the Constitution states. I don't know what Justice Sharma's views are, and I will miss hearing them because I have to go. But I feel that if the larger percentage of our people had read the Constitution, and a good percentage believed in it with loyalty and integrity, we would not have committed so many wrongs as we have done from the day we became free. So the accumulation of these aberrations has acted as a hurdle, a thwart in the way of our speedy progress, elimination of poverty, more equality amongst our people. Now the Constitution, again I will not go into too much detail, the Union of States and Territories, extensive chapters on fundamental rights, but the portion which I will draw your attention to is a very crucial portion, a complete chapter on fundamental rights, to which during the emergency was added another chapter, 51A, the fundamental duties, which again nobody knows, nobody talks about, nobody believes in them. What we owe to the nation, if we all the time demand our fundamental rights, go to court, go to High Court, go to Supreme Court every third day for fundamental rights, and press them and get them, nobody has ever spoken of fundamental duties. Unfortunately and regrettably, over the period of the last 70 years and more, 75 years, the legislatures, the central legislature, has also not legislated on fundamental duties. Perhaps, again, the alibi that this entire chapter is non-justiciable. But unless we proceed to enforce this particular wonderful clause in the Constitution, most of us, including many of us in this room, are perhaps not adequately conscious of what we owe to the country in terms of our duties. Then the principles of governance, the principles of policy, social order to promote welfare of all the people, equality of justice, equal justice, right to work, free compulsory education of children, promotion of education and economic interests of the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribe, weaker sections, separation of judiciary from the executive and so on. All this is beautifully laid down in the chapter on the directive principle. And every day when I look at the first page, second page, any newspaper, any journal, you find such serious deviations from what the Constitution lays down. Now then the question arises, who's to blame? Is the local municipality of Delhi to blame? Is the local parliament of Delhi to blame? Is the national parliament to blame? Is the union government to blame? Are the states to blame? But the fact remains that we have deviated very considerably from the dictates of the Constitution. Now the Constitution lays down the powers of the Union, the executive powers of the Union, and how they're to be exercised, powers of the President, powers of the Parliament, powers of the Judiciary, how it's constituted, Controller and Auditor General, powers of the state, executive powers of the state, the legislative powers of the states, role of governors, role of state legislatures, high courts, subordinate union territories, panchayats and so on. Union-state relations, a very important clause, role of services and so on. Now, having said these introductory remarks, I will say that in brief, in sum, you have the three organs of the Constitution. You can start from anywhere. You can start from the legislature, the central parliament, the state legislatures, the executive, the union executive, and the executive in the states.
Mr. Ajay Tyagi, please. Please seated here. Sorry.
And the judiciary, which has enormous internal autonomy. They are not to be interfered with, because they act as arbiters, they act as the final pronouncers, interpreters of the Constitution. They safeguard and protect the Constitution from the aberrations of the executive, aberrations of the legislature, and aberrations anywhere. The essential features of the Constitution, as it has come to be known after a very famous judgment of the Apex Court. Now, one could spend the next 3-4 hours in saying what is wrong with the executive, what is wrong with the legislature, what is getting wrong with the judiciary for the past 20 years and more. But besides these three organs, we had a non-constitutional organ, the media, the print media, the electronic media, more recent time, and latest is the digital media. They comment on the public affairs of men and governments, individuals and institutions, and these criticisms come out in the public, and they make the public aware of what is not being done right, and they also marginally make the public aware of what is being done right. The media thrives on negative news. Besides the media, we have non-governmental organizations, the social activist groups. They were very few when we joined service. Mr. Gupta and I joined at the same time. In a district where he joined and I joined, I was already working there. And there was not a single NGO when I joined in 1961. But over the years, I revisited that area after 70 years. I found that every subdivision had 1 or 2 or 3 very, very active NGOs. The field of health, field of education, field of promoting public awareness and so on. And besides this very buttressing element, the NGOs, who again become watchdogs, they try to promote welfare and also find fault. In the institution which started, if I'm not wrong, about 4 decades ago, or less than 4 decades, the apex court started accepting public interest litigation. And over a period of time, the apex court has even taken suo motu cognizance of something which is reported to be terribly wrong. So these are outside the constitution, 2-3 organizations, 2-3 institutions, as I said, the media, the NGOs, social activist groups, and the PIL, which is comes under the domain of the judiciary. Now, how do you measure the quality of governance? Books and books have been written, work has been done in Harvard, in MIT, in Princeton, Cornell, and some good work done in Cambridge and London universities. Sussex done a great deal of work. In more recent times, our own institutions, Madras Institute of Development has done some excellent work. The 2 or 3 institutions in Bangalore who are doing this work. The Institute of Economic Growth in Delhi and several other organizations. Our Planning Commission had also done work in the earlier days. And now Niti Aayog has brought out several research papers on how to measure poverty, how to measure this, how to measure that. And all these are very useful. Now, again, I can't get lost in talking in detail about the executive and its failings, the details of the legislature, details of judiciary. But I would say briefly that whatever our failings over the last 75 years, we have made tremendous progress. From a food importing country, grain importing country, we are now net exporters of food grains. We are amongst the topmost producers of sugar, milk, cereals, and exporters also. Our lifespan, our longevity has gone up almost 2.5 times. Infant mortality rate has reduced from nearly 200 to 23, 22. Maternal mortality rate has also reduced very significantly. Our population growth has stabilized over the last 70 years. We are now around 2% fertility rate, 2.2%. We are getting to the level of being stabilized. But right now, we are in a phase where we will have a spurt of very significant increase of population. We overtake China's, which is going down, and then we'll start leveling out. We, in the arena of science, technology, medicine, space, nuclear energy, we are amongst the topmost countries in the world. For whatever it is worth, we are also amongst the top 3 countries in the world in terms of the strength of our armed forces. So it cannot be said that whatever criticism may be made in this room, which I won't be able to have the privilege of hearing, I would say that with all the negativity that one develops by working in government service for 50, 60 years, this has not happened, that has not happened, one becomes negative. But now that I am out of business and I have enough time to think about what is happening, I would say we are way ahead of at least over 100 countries which gained freedom around the time we did. And what is more important to remember is that we have a population of over 140 crores, still growing. There is no religion in the world which our people don't practice. Our people from remote Mizoram to Kutch to Kashmir, they speak more than 2,000 languages and dialects. 165 languages are notified as principal languages, of which some are in the constitution schedule, 25 perhaps. And there are over 1600 dialects which are also recognized and notified. But as many researchers have brought out, we have over 6,000 dialects. In places like Andamans, in one island there will be a particular dialect which nobody understands. And the people are becoming extinct and dying. And then there are Laccadives in various other parts. So this multicultural, multilinguistic, multireligious diversity of our people, it creates a cauldron environment, a situation where governance is not so easily carried out as one would like to believe after reading some books and say, why is this not happening, this happening? It is a difficult task. And the administration of justice also, at the highest levels, again in terms of doing justice in a given situation, you come against the quandary of local traditions, local beliefs, local practices, and pure justice delivered. Would it promote welfare and happiness, or would it create unhappiness? And that's something to ponder about. Now, what hits us on many occasions, I feel that we could have done far better if the philosophies, ideologies of our polity were more related to our constitution, more related to people's welfare. The functioning of the executive or the administrative machinery, administrative system, apparatus is less than optimal in efficiency, in accountability, in honesty, because amongst the many reasons of this negativity, of this decline, is the politicization of the system. A person who gets elected to the panchayat, municipality, municipal corporation, state legislature, parliament, they have all these 60, 70 years, 70 years and more, got it in their heads that speak directly to the patwari or speak directly to the kanungo or the constable or the ASI in the Thana. Now this manner of administrative system creates imbalance in the command and control system, accountability, particularly the police, I am saying. When they talk of security, internal security, why is there lawlessness? Why is there more crime? Perhaps there is no more crime than in the past. The more gets reported, we have larger population, and the media also plays its role. Maybe in proportionate terms, we are no more criminal than we were in the past, but the more crime taking place because we have many more bodies now. Our public delivery systems are unsatisfactory, again because the inefficiency of our public servants. Our legislature is variable from time to time. Sometimes you have a very good crop of elected people, some of them are educated, some are lawyers, advocates, some are ex-professors, engineers, and their contributions are very good. But on the last count, when the last parliament was made, a newspaper report which was referred to on the proceedings of the House, that 43.4% of our legislatures around the country, pan-India, have a criminal intestines. Now, about a year ago, 1993, I had written a report on the criminal nexus between dishonest civil servants, between dishonest politicians, and the mafia. That never got anywhere except got me into trouble because there was not enough determination. The Prime Minister asked me to go into this after the Bombay blast. Dawood Ibrahim's role in Bombay. And he said that first task you do as Home Secretary is give me a report, 90 days. So well, we did what we could. I wrote the report personally because members of my team told me on personal basis. Some of them were my colleagues, same year of service, that they had daughters to marry and they had sons to settle, and they were not going to be associated with this report. So I wrote it personally and I handed it over personally. I wrote in that this is my report, not the committee's report. There was so much fear even writing about it. Then there was a furor in the parliament and many things happened. But anyway, it went to the Supreme Court 3 times. I remember times with Justice Ahmadi and so on. But he passed orders that the committee headed by the Prime Minister of India should go into this. But nothing of the kind happened. We still have the nexus, it is growing. It is overtaking the established government, the established authorities, the unlawful elements, the organized criminals, mafia elements. They play a larger role today. Judiciary, because judicial magistrates, junior judges, senior judges, they all come from the society in which we live. They don't come from foreign countries. The environment has eroded the subordinate judiciary. The subordinate judiciary is as corrupt as the administrative service or the police service or any other service. And every day you find reports of cases not being heard for 7 years, cases being decided in one direction or the other direction. But this is not merely a question of subordinate judges being corrupt. We have over 5 crore cases, as the President Chief Justice mentioned the other day, pending in our courts from the Tahsil level up to the Supreme Court. The infrastructure for judicial administration is not there. The number of magistrates judges are not there. Even in High Court there is a deficiency of 100 odd judges. Even Supreme Court has shortage of judges. So you require the entire judicial apparatus to be positioned before you can raise a finger. But the fact remains that the erstwhile aura, the luster of the judiciary is also tarnished. They have not left behind. And when I joined service, or when I was studying, or when I was teaching in the college, my impression of that time was that the executive falters or fails. Legislature does something which is unethical, unconstitutional, against public interest. Then there was that enormous umbrella, the healing hand, the superior judiciary, apex. It could take time on some occasions, but they would set things right. In some cases, it took 3 years to set things right. But the constitution was restored, justice was delivered. Now I'm hoping with the changing times, the judiciary will restore itself to its enormous high responsibility, its dignity, its eminence, and its crucial role in our democracy. So I would end up, Gupta Sahab, by saying that it is very easy to find fault with any system. Because you can find fault and go home, you are not answering to anybody, you made your criticism, you think you have made the day. I think when we use the word we the people in the preamble, we have also to speak about the responsibility of the people. The people who interact with the administrative system from village upwards, the people who get into the legislatures, whether in the states or at the center, those who get into services, whether the civil services, police services, judicial services, or become judges. The people at large, they also have a role. When we talk of rampant corruption, or we say that corruption isn't gone, after 32 years of debate, we established the institution of Lokpal. I think if I'm not wrong, it's now been in position Judge Sahab for the last 3 years or something like that. February, March 2000 or 2019 it was notified. I have not seen a single newspaper report. I'm not in touch with anybody, so I've not asked anybody whether the Lokpal, which is the highest august body in our country under the Act of Parliament, to inquire into allegations of corruption from the lowest civil servant up to the President of India and the Prime Minister of India. If they are investigating some cases, perhaps that's very good, but there is no news, no report of what's happening. So I would say that we are a large, vast country, as I mentioned earlier. We are a diverse country. There are many problems which arise essentially from our diversity. We are not able to live with our diversity. Things go wrong, and there are law and order situations, and there are FIRs, and there are firings, and people get killed, people go to court, seek justice, and so on. So I would say at the end that as a democracy, as a socialist, secular republic, we have achieved great heights in the last 75 years of our freedom, which get subdued or dimmed or obliterated, partially eroded by the fact that we are 140 crores. We still have a large segment of our population, maybe 18, 19, 20, 21%, because there's some debate about statistics, which is below the poverty line. And because of the COVID in the last 2-3 years, the number of poor has increased. But equally bothersome, equally of serious concern, is that during this period that our poverty number has gone up, the people of rich, the billionaires have also gone up. A recent report in the Economic Times says that the largest increase in the number of millionaires is in India, and that too in the last 5 years. So inequity, lack of equality in economic terms and opportunity terms, these are the two areas I would worry about in terms of our nation. Other things are on the way. The government in power today for the last, ever since they've come to power, things are being pushed. Things are on the roll, the bureaucracy, public service, they are being pressurized to perform. Action is also being taken against the corrupt element, dishonest elements, which earlier used to take long years. But the two things which we have to really be concerned about as a people, wherever we work, in any part of government or outside, the number of our poor and the inequality in our populace. So with these words, I will thank all of you for having heard me, and thank Mr. Gupta for having asked me to be here. I will now seek his leave and perhaps join him another day.
Thank you, Mr. Voha. As always, your presentation and address has been very lucid and thought-provoking. Not many of us know that he is just getting over a personal bereavement. His brother-in-law, who was a retired general in the army, passed away just about 12 days ago. So he is just getting over that. Thanks, Mr. Voha, for reminding us of the preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought or expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution. Mr. Voha is absolutely right that this country has made tremendous progress but still it is an unfinished agenda. Thank you very much, Mr. Boa, for having spared your time. Incidentally, this is Mr. K.J. Alphonse. And
Young
this
man may
is,
not like to recognize me.
oh,
You're speaking, sir, when I think.
this is Ajay Tyagi, formerly Chairman SEBI, and again from Himachal Cadre, which both of us had the privilege to serve at one time. So we welcome you, and Mr. Tayal and Mrs. Tayal, formerly of the Foreign Service. With that, would you leave? The Supreme Court, he would be addressing us on governance in judiciary. Justice Mukundam Sharma.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta, for giving me this opportunity to be a part of the discussion today. We believe in the concept of dharma and satya. That has been our foundation all along. So when we speak of dharma, what does it actually mean? Dharma, the root is dri. Dharayate iti dharma. Meaning that it sustains or it binds. It maintains. So meaning thereby that whatever binds the people, binds the society is dharma. So therefore, the meaning of dharma as we understand as of now is not the one we know, that is religion. Yes, probably in a contracted manner it could be religion, but the broader meaning is that it is the law, the rules, the regulations that we have to follow in our daily life, in our societal life. So therefore, for example, I'll just give one example. I was a judge in the Supreme Court of India, and we were allotted different rooms to sit at different point of time. Now in the room that I was sitting at different point of time, I was sitting in a chair. Now the emblem behind that was Yato Dharmas Tato Jaya. So therefore, it cannot be religion. So what was meant was that wherever righteousness is, wherever correct views are there, that is what is dharma. Yato dharma, and that side will win where there is righteousness or legal support. Similarly, satya, for example, we have accepted that, satyameva jayate, when we say that, victorious is the truth. So these are the two concepts that we have all along been relying upon and known. So whatever actions, whatever views are taken within that periphery of dharma, law, regulations, that is acceptable, and whatever is done beyond that is not acceptable, and then that becomes an offense. So that same is the position with our Constitution of India. You know, all of you are fully aware that as we are about to gain our independence, there was a demand for having our own constitution. And a constituent assembly was constituted, which constituted many people from different walks of life, different religions, different caste, creed, so that all the views are represented in the Constitution, which is the basic document. And that Constituent Assembly took almost 3 years. To be exact, it is 2 years and 10 months. They took this long a period to study the entire constitutional provisions in different areas, different nations, and then we have drafted our constitution, which was adopted on 26th of November 1949. So that particular day is now celebrated as the Constitution Day or a law day, because Constitution was adopted, which is our basic document. So therefore, this Constitution contains various provisions. That is basically our basic document. And I would say that this is a Bible so far the judiciary is concerned, because the judiciary has to act within the four corners of that Constitution and see whether the other two organs of the state, namely the legislature and the executive, they have been discharging their duties within the periphery of the constitutional provisions or not. Now, we have, as you know, we have 3 organs, as is already told to you. But the Constitution is the fountainhead of all laws, all actions, and all powers that is exercised by the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary have to be within the four corners of that constitutional provisions. If there is any deviation therefrom, the action is bad, the legislation is bad, and even the decision could be said to be bad and could be set aside by the apex court, that is the Supreme Court of India. Of course, beyond that, there is no other authority. You have to accept that as the law of the land. Now, there are some salient features in our constitutions, like, for example, as is already pointed out, we have 4 goals: justice, then we have equality, liberty, and fraternity. These are the goals that we have set for ourselves, that we must achieve that. Now, so far justice is concerned, already said about it, political, social, and economic. You will please appreciate whether we have been able to get that. Probably political justice we have been able to attain, because we have a vibrant democracy, we have a good electoral machinery available to us. But in the other fields, there is some difficulties and some loopholes and some shortcomings. Now, next is, after these goals, the other salient feature of our constitution is our fundamental rights. Now, these fundamental rights are sacrosanct to each one of us, whatever profession we belong to, or wherever we live. We are bound by these fundamental rights. We have those with us. We have also fundamental duties. Fundamental rights are justiciable, but fundamental duties are not justiciable. But although it is said that it is not justiciable, the judiciary is trying to give effect to some of these provisions, which are for the welfare of the people. But unfortunately, as rightly pointed out by Mr. Vora, people say not giving much of an importance so far fundamental duties are concerned. If we enjoy a right, we must perform our duties as well. But unfortunately, it is not being done. And because of that, the court has to come in and take certain views with regard to enforcement of some of these fundamental duties also. You've been hearing about this uniform civil code and all that. So therefore, let us assume and hope that in future these provisions of fundamental duties will also be held to be justiciable at some point of time. Now, we have 3 organs. There is also, we have the concept of separation of the powers, free election to legislatures, and accountability and transparent government. Now, whether we have a transparent government or an accountable government is all for you to see. But so far judiciary is concerned, I will not go much into the other 2 organs, that is the working of the legislature and the working of the executive. But I will deal with a little bit of judiciary's function, because there is some sort of debate and some sort of criticism that there is a judicial governance. Now, yes, there are 3 institutions, each has a separate role to play. The Constitution says so, that each one of them will have this sort of duties and responsibilities. But whether it is a watertight compartment, the Supreme Court has said that there is no such watertight compartment, and that doctrine of separation of powers does not apply to our Constitution. And that is the law of the land today, so we have to accept that as it is. Now, so far, because we are discussing about governance, now governance means the process of decision making and not the decision. So, decision is also governance, yes, correct. But so far judiciary is concerned, judiciary is not much concerned so far decision is concerned. It goes into that decision making process also. But there was a case of the Supreme Court as far back as 1991 or 1992, Tata Cellular's case, where it says the court will only examine and scrutinize the decision-making process and not the decision. But there has been some development on that also. Sometimes decisions are also being challenged and being interfered with. But the court is responsible only so far as decision-making process is concerned. So therefore, and so far good governance is concerned, you see the UN Commission of Human Rights has said that that is good governance where there is transparency, responsibility and accountability. So these are the 2 main factors which, if present, could be said to be good governance. Now, Constitution also envisages independent judiciary with powers of judicial review and ushering in rule of law. Now, these 2 expressions are very relevant and important because judicial review, the power is given by the Constitution itself and judiciary exercises that power. The powers that is given under the Constitution is Article 141 and 142. This is exclusively to the Supreme Court because Supreme Court is the highest of judicial authority and therefore they are given some discretionary power that if they find that there is some omission or commission, they should come in and interfere. And their decisions is final and binding on all concerned. The other power that is given is Article 32 of the Constitution of India, which is given only to the Supreme Court of India to exercise their power to grant writs. Now these PILs we are speaking about today, PILs are filed under that provision, Article 32, because when a civil society or an NGO is aggrieved by some actions of the government, and if it concerns the public at large, welfare of the people, then in that event, the Supreme Court can entertain such a petition. And as you know, this was done during the time of Justice Bhagwati, and he had also accepted on the basis of a postcard also. So that concept has been developed now, and the power is exercised under Article 32, and I believe that although in some places there could be some sort of default, but more or less the PILs, the responsibilities and duties that is cast on the Supreme Court on these aspects have been done well and very successfully. Now coming to the powers of the High Court, that is under Article 226 of the Constitution of India, they can issue writs of different types and different subjects. Now, that power, read with Article 227, that is also the power of the High Court, which is exercised in order to correct the mistakes that of the tribunals and other authorities. Now, the other concept, this is so far as judicial review is concerned, the courts have been given power to review the decisions of the legislature as also of the executive. And High Court and the Supreme Court exercise its powers under these provisions so as to correct or to set aside the decisions taken by the legislature and also by the executive. Now, so far as the other concept, that is the concept of rule of law. Now, what is rule of law? There are two concepts. One is rule of law, which is exercised by the judiciary, is the power exclusively used by the or performed by the judiciary. The other is rule by law. Now, rule by law is the legislation. The legislature is given power, they can make rule by making a law. So, rule by law and rule of law. Rule of law is exercised by the judiciary, and the constitution of this concept of rule of law is that there has to be absence of arbitrary power, and the authority must act with reasonableness and with transparency, and then only that will, if the action is within the periphery of these, that it is reasonable, it is transparent, it is not arbitrary, then the action is upheld. Otherwise, it could be set aside, whether it is a law or any executive action. Now, in Bachchan Singh, there was a case in the year 1982, Bachchan Singh case it is called, and the architect of the judgment was Justice Bhagwati, because during his time, the law was developed, the concept, number of new concepts had crept in, so his judgments are accepted as path-breaking decisions. Now, Justice Bhagwati has said about, in this particular case, about the rule of law. What does rule of law mean? He said that there should be no arbitrariness, no unreasonableness, and it has to provide for protection against excesses of the legislature and that of executive. There is yet another case, D.C. Wadhwa's case in 1987. Now there it was said that at that point of time, and what was challenged there was frequent issuance of the ordinances by the government instead of going through the route of legislation. And the Supreme Court decried that sort of a procedure and said that this is not the proper procedure. The legislature has to make the law, and there cannot be a shortcut of issuance of ordinances. Now, Justice Khanna, you know, H.R. Khanna, the famous case of ATM Jabalpur, due to which he lost the position of the Chief Justice of India. Now, he said that rule of law is antithesis of arbitrariness, and that is, rule of law is accepted to be the normal rule of all civilized society. And these two concepts, that is the judicial review and the rule of law, are considered to be the basic structure of our constitution, and therefore, if they cannot be touched, the rule of law prevails, the judicial review prevails, so necessarily, therefore, there will be some sort of governance so far judiciary is concerned, and that is what is judicial governance. That is what is judicial governance. And Mr. Fali Nariman, he said that there is a legitimacy of judicial governance which is inevitable and established by provisions of Article 14, 21, 32, 226 and 227, that these powers are basic structure of our constitution, and so therefore role of judiciary came to be expanded and increased. Now, there is also a criticism that there is a judicial overreach. Now, why is it happening? There is judicial overreach because, you see, there is, according to Mr. Nariman himself, that there is underreach by the other two organs of our society. Now, whether or not and how far we can go is again a matter of debate, and I believe that there should be debate and discussion of this nature so that we know where we stand and whether we should go for better course of action. Thank you.
Distinguished Mr. Gupta ji, distinguished former Judge Sharma ji, Mr. Tyagi, ladies and gentlemen, this is too soft. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Justice Swara made a very elaborate discussion on various aspects of governance, or the various wings of administration, and to what has gone wrong, what has gone right. And I'm extremely happy to listen to Justice Sharma speaking on the judiciary. I belong to the 1979 batch of the IAS. I quit IAS, became an independent MLA in Kerala. I quit and became an independent MLA 32 days after my resignation. I won the Best MLA award in Kerala. I quit again, I resigned from the assembly, joined a political party, and I was a union minister from 17 to 19. I was a tourism minister of India and also a junior minister in IT. My term in parliament expired 3 months back. So I'm, of course, once you are in politics, you are always in politics. So I'm still a politician, and I hope to, sir, practice a bit of law, hopefully. Yeah, and also teach. So this is some, I don't want to do full-time work, so this is some, whatever interests me. I listen to a lot of music, do some bit of dance at home on myself. So I'm somebody who enjoys life. I've always been a rebel in the service. I don't know whether you people know. In 1996, I wrote a front page signed article saying the Prime Minister of the country is corrupt, and I was very promptly suspended. In 27 years in the IAS, I never got a telephone call from any politician anytime. No. Yeah. So I have no complaint that anybody has ever interfered with my job. Of course, this 27 years includes my tenure in the DD as Commissioner Land when we pulled down 14,310 illegal mansions in Delhi. I don't demolish juggies.
Before the bulldozer culture caught up, who was the man who was running the bulldozer?
But I had...
And he was before me. I quote.
Yes, sir. And of course, I had a great support from the judiciary, and I was able to do some of these. So I really have no complaints, which lot of bureaucrats make that we are not allowed to do things by the political executive, I think it's completely wrong. I mean, I'm sure those from the Foreign Service and some of the IAs also would possibly agree with me. If you are willing to bend, you will be kicked. Very sure, 100%. And you establish your credentials in the first 5 years. If you ask me if we have failed in some ways, because we have succeeded in some ways massively, and over the past 8 years, I think there have been areas where we made tremendous progress. I've just released a book, it's a big book called Accelerating India. It's available in the market. The Hindi edition is going to come out this month, where I have listed out exactly what has been the objective of the government and what has been achieved in terms of actual numbers. It's just not about the money spent, no. Money spent budget is okay. Actually what has been achieved, it's got 1 million numbers, and strangely, some people might say being a former minister, former MP of the party, it would be an adulatory stuff. In fact, the word Narendra Modi is not even mentioned in my book. It's only Prime Minister. So, yeah. And the fact that he is from Gujarat is not even mentioned in my book. So it's as objective as it can be. Accelerating India is the title. If there is one wing of the government of the entire our delivery machinery which is failed, I think it's IAS. I have no doubt in it. We have the power to do it, and we didn't do it. I know that Jagi would agree with me. I was with Collector of Kottayam. I don't know whether you've seen some of these videos. It's the only district in the country with zero poverty. We've achieved maternal mortality rate, infant mortality rate better than Europe. Forget about US. US is far behind. And even in 1990, when I was a collector, we achieved a quality of health index better than the US. We became the first town in the country to become 100% literate. It became a model for the rest of the country. We started a program called To the People. That means I take my entire district administration to the people. It won the highest UN award. Who prevents a district collector, an IAS officer from delivering? Nobody. Nobody does it. And even how did this whole idea, let me tell you this program called To the People, which won the highest UN award. One day an 80-year-old lady walks up to me in my bungalow and says, she shouts at me, she says, screams, she says, this is the third time I'm coming. I had to change bus thrice. I had to get somebody from my neighborhood to accompany me to see you, and twice you are not here. Where were you? I said, I must have gone out to some inspection. And the punchline, like in a movie, she says, government is giving you a car. Why can't you come and see me in my village? You know, I think 90% of the district magistrates would have called the security and thrown out this lady, isn't it? Yeah, how dare you say that I should come and meet you on the other district collector. I smile, and in the evening I discuss with my wife and my children. I said, sounds like a good idea. Why don't we take the entire administration? That's how it started. And then I would announce that I'm coming to this panchayat 3 months from now. And we just don't go to the district, to the panchayat, just like the Britishers used to go. I mean, there's a practice of IAS officers going to the villages. It's not like that. We have 3 months preparation before we go. We say file any petition regarding anything you have in the panchayat office. We give them 1 month's time. We take it to the collectorate, read it, and then one day when I was passing through at 12 o'clock in front of my collectorate, I saw light all over the place. I went up there. I saw 50 people from my office sitting down and reading. I said, what are you guys doing here? He said, no, we received 5,000 petitions, and we unions decided that this task will be finished in 3 days. Mind you, it's a state where nothing happens, where the unions don't work, employees don't work. They decided among themselves that this task will be done because they said, wow, this is a good program. So it's all a question of sharing your dream with your employees and taking them aboard. So they would read it, and then I would send it to the SP and say, here are 500 petitions on regarding police, examine these, I'm giving you 15-20 days, and come to this school, and SP always sits at room number 2. It's all predetermined. And the petition is also, when he files a petition, he's told, you come to this school, this room at this particular point of time, let's say 11:25. These 5,000 people. So 5,000 petitions, 10,000 people turn up. The panchayat provides lunch at lunchtime. And the rule is very simple. Whatever is asked must be provided there. You cannot say ration card is ready, tomorrow you come and collect it from the Tariq supply office. It has to be delivered there. Land title has to be given there. Everything has to be delivered there. If you cannot give it, whatever is asked for, Before coming here, there must be an appellate authority sitting on it and deciding and say whether it is right or not. And this would go on till midnight. I covered my entire panchayat thrice. Now, did I need a government order to do this? No. Another instance, one day something to do with judiciary. One day, two young people come to see me and says, sir, this 2.5-year-old child is dying. That family belongs to the faction called Jehovah's Witness. And they don't allow treatment, don't allow blood transfusion, and therefore, can you do something? Now, I could have called my clerks and sent the petition down and say, examine, does the district collector have any power? Of course, no. But I called my stenographer within 2 minutes and I said, take this dictation to the sub-inspector of police. I said, this child has the right to live irrespective of the religious beliefs of the parents. Take the child into custody, take him to medical college and treat. It was done, the transfusion was given, and of course the child survived. And 10 days later comes a 1,000-page petition in Kerala High Court against me. This was a violation of fundamental right. Yeah. So, upheld by the High Court, also upheld by the Honorable Supreme Court. So we are here as, when you have a 1.5 million people writing the civil service exams, and 100 people get selected, and about 800, 900 people get selected into all services together. If we can't deliver, say the law doesn't permit you, I break law left, right and center. I can tell you that. But I write long notes as to why I break a law, why this is unfair, why it has to be delivered. But one thing I was very sure, and nobody can catch me because of that, I don't break the law for a rich man. I break the law only for a poor. And I've broken the law left, right and center. I never read the All India Service Rules, sir. Never. Because I said I'm going to break them anyway.
Me too.
Yeah.
I never read the All India Rules, and I didn't read the Government of India Secretariat Manual or the State Government Secretariat Manual. I never went to them.
I never went home with a single file on my table. I never sent a single file back to my department asking for queries. If I have a query, I'll call the officer concerned, write down this is what it is, send the decision down. I'll just take one more point. When I was Commissioner for Entrance Examination Kerala, generally it takes 3 months for the MBBS engineering entrance results to be declared. Even CBSE used to take 3 months. I had only 24 people in my office. I had no new computers, same people, and I called them and said, we will declare the results in 1 week. Instead of 3 months, same people. I got nothing more. And I got music system from my house. I got mattresses from my home. I said, nobody is going home, including me. I didn't go home for 7 days. And we had chicken biryani, mutton biryani, basket noodles, ice cream. And if anybody wants to sing, dance, get your children onto the office, do everything. When we declared the results on the 7th day, there were 6 newspaper editorials saying, it's a miracle. Is it a miracle? My opinion is, none of this is miracle, me knocking down 14,310 illegal buildings or this one or making Kottayam 100% literate. None of this is a miracle. This is all what the Constitution of India has empowered every officer. It doesn't have to be from the IAS. I've been a member of the MEA committee for the past 3-4 years, and I've seen the fantastic work which the Foreign Service is doing, because there was an impression in everybody's mind, it's just wine and dine. So after getting into this committee and evaluating work, and of course I was the most vocal member of the committee, I see that they're doing a fantastic job. So every officer in this country is about, and according to me, we have failed. Sir, on judiciary, you said it has to be within the 4 corners of the Constitution. We passed the Judicial Appointments Act unanimously. And you said you have to operate within the framework of what exactly the Constitution says. The word is consult. So when does consult becomes? You decide. Obviously it's wrong. Of course it's wrong. It cannot be. Can politicians be given the power to fill the judiciary with their own people? Obviously not. Of course not. But you have to work out a mechanism. Of course, the judicial appointments order of the Supreme Court is completely unconstitutional. I have no common sense saying that. I said in the parliament also. Then of course I gave 14 suggestions on how judiciary can be improved. I said there is corruption. I think approximately at least around 50% of my service I think is corrupt. I have no doubt on this. I think similar numbers in other services are corrupt. But what about judiciary, sir? I don't want to mention name. My sister owned 8.5 acres of land in the heart of a metropolitan city, because if I say which city, then the honorable judge will know which high court I'm talking about. One day, somebody else creates a fake order, comes to encroach on this land, and my sister files an injunction petition. An injunction is converted into suit by the trial court, and she gets an order against her. Goes to the High Court, again an order against her, in spite of the fact that it's an ancestral property which they own. Came to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court just shook their heads and said, 2 concurrent judgments from lower court, and therefore we don't want to look at it. Thrown. If you go to the Supreme Court and see, all the judges sit up there and the floor is down about 10 feet down there. 99% of the fight, it goes down. Sorry sir, I'm just being a little dramatic. Yeah, I mean, you can't blame them, because I know all these judges work so hard. My younger brother's brother-in-law was the Chief Justice of Kerala High Court. I see him getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh yeah, they have worked extremely hard, no doubt on this. So you can't also really blame them with the kind of numbers we have. Well, then my sister went back to the court and filed a title suit. Then res judicata. They said, sorry, in the injunction petition suit, it was already decided that, this was, the opponent had the right. Again, High Court, of course, Supreme Court, of course, they said, again, Shukar. Now, 5 concurrent judgments from lower courts, and so we don't intervene. File a review petition, of course, didn't hear at all. Then file a curative petition. No. Sir, in that state judiciary, lower courts and high courts, you will not find possibly one honest judge. I'm very sorry to say. You already know which it is. Yeah? Take Kerala. You will not possibly find one judicial officer, lower judiciary or high court who is corrupt. You will not find. So look at the contrast. I mean, fantastic system we have in Kerala. Not one judicial officer, even the minister who is corrupt, possibly you won't find in Kerala. In a neighboring state, you will not possibly find one judge who is honest. I don't know, I won't mention the state. No. So we need, I think, dramatic changes. I think we all need to work together. Yeah, we just need to work together. A lot of innovations which I had introduced is in my autobiography, Making a Difference. It's a free download on my website. So a whole lot of stuff. In my office in Kottayam Collectorate, I had no files. I devised a system in which I talk directly to the village officer. Whoever comes to me, see what happens in the collectorate. A petition comes, collector writes something, and it goes into a bin, a bottomless bin. If somebody picks it up, good, otherwise it goes down there. It goes to the ADM, it becomes, I just only take 2 minutes, sir. It goes to the ADM, it goes to the section, it becomes a file, and then through the ADM, to the sub-collector, to the Tahsildar, to the revenue inspector, the file paper reaches the village officer. You know what I did? I bypassed the entire system. I would have about 300 petitioners. I would write now, where is the thing to be done, a mutation to be done of a property? Who does it? The village officer. I would write to the village officer. I have examined the records, because I take a few minutes to examine each of these. And that is something which we owe to people. And I would write to the village officer, do this within so many days, and then inform the people. And you know what happens? I would give the original to the petitioner. So there is no file in the collectorate. And I say, go and deliver it to the village officer. And when he comes out of the office, a photocopy is made of the petition he gave me and my orders. So he has a copy of what I wrote. So he knows exactly, there is transparency. It's delivered to the village officer. And then if it's not done, I said, keep in touch with the village officer. If it's not done by the date, see, I never write, please do it in 2 weeks. I will specifically mention, do it by the 25th of this month. Never ever write, do it in 2 weeks. That 2 weeks or 2 years will never come. Yeah. So I said, if it's not done, come to me. Check up with the village officer, taluk officer, sub-collector. If it's done, not done, come to me with this paper you have already, the photocopy I gave you. Then again I will write on that on the same paper. You have not done it, please do it by, let's say, 30th. and again he comes out of the office, he gets a photocopy, delivers in the building office. There are no files in the collectorate. I was collector almost for 4 years. Ultimately, all the people were saying, sir, we have no work because there are no files in the office. And mind you, and if it is not done by the third time, they can come back to me a third time. If it's not done by the third time, the village officer would be summoned along with the petitioner. The Kalsar would be summoned, the sub-collector would be summoned, whomever I directed. Imagine in front of 300 people, the village officer who is considered to be, the king of the village, is summoned in front of people. It happened only 3 or 4 times. So, you devise your own methodology. Each has the freedom to. And it's so crazy. These days it's so impossible to get people on the mobile phone. Even when I was minister, I've taken 100% of calls. 100%. Even to reach a minister's PSR is impossible. A minister's additional PA is impossible. You try, you won't get it. You won't get through. My system was very simple. After every meeting, I'd set apart 10 minutes to return my calls and reply messages. Is it not possible? What is the minister so busy with, you tell me? What is he so busy with? If you are not willing to listen to people, their messages, and mind you, each of those calls, it's taken down, messages taken down, work done and responded back. Each of those messages. During the day my mother died of COVID, I brought back about 2,000 people from abroad during the pandemic. Coordinating with the MEA, coordinating with the embassy, coordinating with the airlines. It was morning 6 o'clock till 2, 3 in the morning. The day my mother died of COVID here, I brought back something like 50 people. So, my position is, if this nation wants to, we can do it. And the Prime Minister has so simply shown it's possible to deliver. From 11 kilometers of road, we are constructing 100 kilometers of roads. Look at our airports. Our airports today are better than any airport in the world. When I came back from the US 2 weeks back, it took me exactly 1 minute to get through immigration. In London, in Heathrow, one of the most famous, I stood for 3 hours, serpentine queues. Yeah. We have gone a long way from constructing 11 crore toilets to building 3 crore houses to providing medical assistance to 5 crore people, feeding 80 crore people during the pandemic, to being the economic powerhouse of the world. I would say in some way where we are growing, because I have very strong disagreement with the way the Reserve Bank is handling the interest rate, the monetary policy.
I always knew that Alphonse is a difficult example to follow. Now I know.
So sir, I'll stop, sir. I'm saying this is because I know that whatever I have done, anybody can do better than me. Anybody. So that's why I'm quoting some of these cases. So I have no exception at all. I have no special abilities at all. Whatever I have done, anybody can do better if they just want to do it. Thank you so much.
John Kennedy once famously said, ask not what the nation can do for you. Ask yourself what you can do for the nation. This was Kennedy's motto and vision, and Alphonse has proved it right, and so Justice Mukundkam Sharma. Now I turn to Ajay Tyagi. He is one of us. He is Himachal cadre. Till recently he was chairman SEBI and now retired. Over to Mr. Ajay Tyagi.
Yeah, sure. If you kindly excuse me, I have a speech at Leela, 6 o'clock. So I'm so sorry. This is the first time in my entire life in 40 years when I turned up for a program late. I was 10 minutes late. My really apologies. I turned up late and I have to be working. Thank you so much.
Over to you, Ajay.
All good? Absolutely.
Distinguished participants. Mr. Gupta, in fact, rang up about 10 days back and said he'd like to speak on corporate governance. So I limit my thoughts on corporate governance only because enough has been said in governance. and much more can be said. So that way, this is a bit of a subset of governance and it's a bit of a, not really a technical subject, but limited to the people who are more interested in the corporate world, so I'll stick to that, and I've jotted down some points and I'll go along with that. So to begin with, why it is important, now India is really growing as a strong, emerging and strong economy. Some critics may agree or not agree at the speed at which it is emerging. GDP figures, it is 6.8, 7, 6.5, nevertheless, whether it is IMF, World Bank or any other credible rating agency, definitely India is one of the emerging economies, not only in emerging countries, but also as a global economy, even compared to the developed economies. And in this journey to become an emerging economy, corporate India plays a pivotal role to make India become a global leader. And it's an inseparable part, as it is a subset of the broader governance of the countries. That's how corporate governance is important. Now, some of the recent trends. As on 30th November 2022, the market capitalization of listed companies was 122% of GDP. So that's around $3 trillion, which used to be around 80% in, say, end of 2015. So this shows the increasing heft of the capital markets in the economy. It's 122% of GDP. So much money is riding in stock markets on the equity side. Other feature which has happened recently means from March 2020, ever since, in fact, uncertainties have also increased, initially because of COVID and later of geopolitical issues and Russia-Ukraine war, supply side disruptions and all. The retail participation has increased suddenly quite a bit. And one of the reasons is, of course, that RBI has kept the bank rates very low, inflation was high, so real returns for the bank deposits are almost negative. It has been negative almost now 3 years. So people are looking for other venues and all. That was certainly was one reason why they shifted to capital markets. So the demat accounts, in which actually reflects how much equities one is holding. Demat system started in 97, 98. So whatever was the number which was achieved in 20 years, more than that was achieved in the last 2.5, 3 years. So more than 10 crores of demat accounts which have been opened. Another thing which has happened is that till 5 years back, now with what is happening in the US with the interest rates, the way it's an interest rate rising cycle everywhere because of now central banks are trying to control inflation. Many people, I mean that's not my subject of talk, that they've been late in the action and it's delayed. But the fact is, with this interest rate rising in US, these foreign investors move out of emerging economies. Then they make their own guesses and they come back also. But foreign portfolio investors are a very important part of the market, around 18-20% of the market. What happened this year, this financial year, had it happened 5 years back, the market would have just collapsed. So it is only the resilience of the domestic institutional investors and retail investors which has really kept the market buoyant. So these trends, what I'm saying is, they have relevance to the corporate governance, which is there for the corporates in India. So this is the trend. Now the whole issue of corporate governance is trust and faith. Trust is the bedrock of joint stock companies. And since a lot of private money is, if promoter is putting her own money, that is something different. If it's a public money, there is a matter of trust. So trust definitely is the bedrock of a joint stock company, and a fair and transparent and sound regulatory system, something which investors are looking for. And I must say, and I'm proud to say, and it's not that I'm ex-AB chairman, this you can find out from your own sources, at least on the equity side, not on the debt side, On the equities regulation side, our regulations could match with anywhere in the West. We are part of International Organization Security Commissions, we are part of FATF, we are part of BIS, we are part of all the international organizations, we are part of G20. So there is anyway peer pressure to have standards which match with the international standards. So equity side, our standards are pretty good. And if you have seen, even in COVID times, in March 2020, when markets fell by almost 30-35%, and that happened everywhere in the world, they have come back, and markets, in fact, have been quite bright part of the economy, if I may say, in the past 3 years. Now, various regulatory norms relating to corporate governance of the companies are with a view to, as said, for ensuring trust. We in SEBI, we set up many committees in the past to suggest as to how to improve, because these regulations actually need improvement constantly over a period of time as the dynamics change and also based on the experience gained. The first committee was in 1999 under Kumar Mangalam Birla, which led to the listing agreements in the exchanges, which actually prescribed as to a listed company has to follow this discipline. And the last one being Mr. Uday Kotak, which was in 2017, and which gave a lot of recommendations on the constitution of the board, related party transactions, audit, composite accounts of the companies. So these are all important aspects, and as I said, that all these have to be met and constantly watched, and proper enforcement is required to ensure the trust of people to come to the market. So, of course, you see, some people say that people shifted to markets because banks were giving negative rates, but no one will throw their money in well unless there is some credibility, unless they have faith in the system. So this needs constant improvement, and I think over a period of time we have learned quite a bit. We are also part of OECD Corporate Governance Committee as an observer India, and we have brought in a lot of improvements. The issue is that this continues to be a topical subject, and I'll say why. It is because it's a matter of letter and spirit. Everything cannot be hard-coded. Everything cannot be hard-coded in regulations. And industries also, time and again, if you notice, they approach government, they approach the regulator, and then they come around and say that it should be more principle-based and not rule-based. But a balance has to be found, but cannot be 100% rule-based. And some flexibility has to be given to the corporates. But that flexibility, actually, with the maturity coming in market, that flexibility is likely to be rightly used. Now, to misuse that flexibility to say that where is there, it's written in the regulation that you're supposed to be diligent, they'll say where is it defined, what is diligent, and then take it to courts, and also that serves no purpose. There's a zero-sum game. So it becomes a topical subject because the temptation to cut corners by the corporates, sometimes bordering with fraudulent cases, and there's so many cases which are there, which have been in the media too, which have been reported. This happens everywhere. By the way, capital markets, even in US, is quite chaotic because the nature of the market is like this. So it's not something which is only in India that, you say every day if you see the economic channels, only they're showing that Sensex or Nifty going up, down, this sector going up, down, making guesses and doing recommendations. Also, it's a chaotic sort of a thing, no doubt about it, because you need a market which should be liquid, where people should enter, be able to come out quickly in a transparent manner. There is a fair information between all the participants, and there is no inside, no one is misusing inside information. It's something which will always be there. But there are 2-3 things in India, of course, which stand out. One is that reputational risk in India is not that important. In fact, this, if you compare with, say, developed world, somehow we definitely, at least I get this feeling, even the topmost corporates in India they really don't consider much about the reputational risk. They somehow think that people will forget and they will move ahead. Second is the enforcement part and also then the judicial, the cases which go to the judiciary. In fact, in SEBI, if I remember, we had some 1200 cases. We have a separate tribunal, by the way, appellate tribunal in SEBI, from where it goes to Supreme Court. And the appellate tribunal have a ex-chief justice of a high court. But still we had people in writs and all taking SEBI to court, some 1200 cases to high courts, some 350, 400 cases in Supreme Court. So those cases get delayed, so people in fact feel that they can delay things, and so that is another factor which is very peculiar to the Indian scenario. But now what is happening of late is that investor awareness, the way it is increasing, it is putting some pressure on the corporates to check their behavior. Another thing which is typical of India is a promoted ownership culture. India, most of the companies are promoter owned. In fact, end of March 2022, in the top 500 listed companies, promoters had an average ownership of 55%, which is pretty large. But you would have read that there's strong lobby actually, which says that there's nothing wrong with being promoter driven. They would say that in COVID times, those are the companies which did very well because promoters have long-term interest, and the professionally managed companies also no one can guarantee. In fact, there have been many episodes where companies are diversified board structure, but there were frauds there too. So they will say that India is different and promoter driven is something which really suits us, and we did not blindly follow the West. But it will be difficult to deny that if the board structure is not diversified and widely held, then the chances of wrongdoing, say related party transactions or frauds definitely are likely to be more. And even what has happened in the ones which were diversified board structure and which brought bad name to those companies, there the CEOs actually became larger than life. In fact, if you noticed, that is equally bad. So someone say that if a diversified board, why was CEO made so important or so powerful? So that definitely also is an issue. But the ones which have really brought bad name are the ones, if you try to remember and analyze, are the ones where the CEOs actually had grown out of their size. There are 2-3 things which were done which are happening good, and much more needs to be done. One is that institutional investors actually, their percentage shareholding has increased, and it is around 25% now in the top 500 listed companies. By institutions, I mean mutual funds, insurance companies, pension funds, EPFO. So it is presumed that they are institutions which are holding public money in trust, and they have capabilities to doing analysis as to what is happening. So they should show more interest in a company where they invested. So that they are just not only investors, but they have a role in the corporate governance and seeing as to what promoters are doing, whether that benefit the other investors, the retail investors which have come through them, or the directly also invest. So there's something called stewardship code, which SEBI brought out about in 2020, if I remember, where SEBI said that, okay, if you are part of a shareholder in a listed company, in the resolutions which come for AGMs for voting, you have to have a voting policy. You have to decide with how you're voting. Because many times those people used to just say absent, and they used to abstain, and some of them will say yes, some of them will say no. And many of them were misused. In fact, I don't want to narrate the names, I'm fully aware of them. And with the government companies also, I must say, with large shareholders, they are abstaining. There is some resolution which is only pro-promoter, doesn't help investors. So we said you should have a policy that should be on your website, and then you should have a voting policy, and then you should have the actual voting done. Then the comparison comes if there are 10 mutual funds part of a listed company, and there's some resolution which is on the face of it doesn't look, doesn't take care of the investors. So if 5 mutual funds are saying yes and 5 no, then SEBI started asking question as to why. Because that money is not yours, that money is of the public. So you can't really misuse that to favor a promoter. So that is something which has started. Now then later on, even IRDA did it for insurance companies and PFRDA for pension fund. So this is something which is good. And also when institutions take a stance, the non-institutional investors and the retail investors, I said retail investors have really increased in the past 3 years. In fact, they are almost 7.5% of the total holding of top 500 companies, which is substantial. So they also get activated, which they need to be. Although some people say that shareholder activism may be disruptive, but shareholders are not only buying shares only for short term for intraday selling or making money, but they are co-owners of that company. They have to realize that. There is this SEBI registered proxy advisors. We have, in fact, SEBI has had 3 of them which were quite active, and they now give advisories to the voting recommendations. Whenever there is a AGM on various resolutions of all listed companies, voluntarily they give their recommendations, and of course it is for retail investors to take a view, but that really they give their view, and companies are given some time to respond, and they can again give their views. So it is something which is good. Now coming to an important institution called independent directors. This independent directors institution is to safeguard the interest of minority shareholders. I said that if promoters are 55% of the top 500 listed company, of course institutions, as I said, around 25% more. But minority shareholders' interest, to safeguard them, there are some people who need to be on the board itself, not only through the AGM. And this institution of independent directors is there world over. It's not only a creation in India. In India, it's more important because it is more required, I said, because of the culture of promoter dominance. But what happens is that promoters dominated companies, all these committee systems like nomination and remuneration committee, which is supposed to in fact identify independent actors and select them and ultimately recommend to the board and board approves. So promoters have a lot of influence on those committees. In fact, they will not openly do it, but they do influence that. Ministry of Corporate Affairs introduced a system of taking exam for the independent directors, which in fact as SEBI we didn't like. We said that no, that's not the right way. So they are good independent directors who will be conscientious people of reputation, who will have some convictions. But if you say that you have to sit and give an exam to become independent director is something which perhaps is not correct. Better way is to do skill mapping, which in fact Quota Committee said and SEBI recommended of a company, that where the skills, what are the skills required, and on the website, and where is the shortfall, and skill mapping. And then SEBI introduced that there are many directors, independent directors who used to join companies. A limit was put. Yeah. So that up to 7 companies only you can become. They used to join and resign. So we said that's not on. If you are resigning, you have to give reasons as to why you're resigning. If the company is doing bad corporate governance, then you should bring it out to the public. You just can't say my health is not good, I am resigning, and you are in 6 other companies. So that something is not at all which was acceptable. And also increased liabilities and some of the judicial interventions has improved. My last point on this is that it's a global issue and very relevant one, that is shareholders versus stakeholders. So it's not only the returns for the shareholders, it's also the stakeholders as to what do they gain. And there comes this ESG, environment, social and governance, investments and business sustainability reports, which is an emerging field, but India also has moved fast. SEBI recommended this responsive business PRSRs, are business responsibility and sustainability reporting reports for top 1,000 companies compulsory from 2022-23. And what needs to be done is that there has to be some regulations for ESG rating providers. Right now there is no norm world over which has been agreed even in the developed countries. But despite that, it's trillions of dollars are touted to be that are being invested in ESG. So what is ESG? That's something which is an emerging thing and which must be addressed. So this is what broadly I wanted to say on the corporate governance. Thank you very much.
Now the floor is open for discussion. Please be brief and announce yourself and put a question as lucidly as you can.
Sometime 76 batch of IFS. Many countries and you learn how not to govern. But one country where one should try to learn how to govern, perhaps is Republic of Korea. I was ambassador there. And IAS batches sir used to come there for before they became joint secretaries for training, etc. And there are very clear differences in governance. There the governance is outcome oriented. In India, governance is procedure oriented. There are 50 regulatory bodies, audible judges, and everybody is so afraid of taking decisions. Mr. Alphonse said whatever he said, but ground reality is different. But I agree that a good officer can do a lot. I was chief passport officer of the whole country, and many people remember how the computerization was done and governance was improved. But the bureaucracy remains very non-cooperative, corrupt, including in the passport organizations, any office you go to. And the government is right that reduce the interface, even courts, Honorable Judge would agree, that lower level at all, without money you can't get a judgment out. So reduce the interface between the public and whoever is taking a decision. And computerization and artificial intelligence, that is the only way. Second thing I will say, and what Mr. Alphonse displayed, a leader should have passion for whatever he is doing. In India, we put people on jobs, they are not interested in those jobs. And when we have those at the helm who have passion, whether it is a M.S. Swaminathan, whether it is a Korean, whether it is an Ishwaran, this system has delivered. So we have to choose people to lead any mission who has passion. Mr. Alphonse was showing that passion. Sir, you have been in UPSC, I have been taking interviews after retirement. How do you, 100 people are selected for IAS, and some of them from day one are not at all committed to any idea of service. How do you determine that a person has passion for his or her job to do public service? If you can find some mantra for that, I think that will help governance. Thank you.
I entirely agree with you. Whether the officer is from the IFS or the IPS or the IAS or IRS or Customs and Excise, nothing prevents him from doing the right thing. Nothing prevents him from doing the right thing. Even today. That's all I would say.
Sir, very briefly, in 2-3 minutes, I will talk on two subjects. That include governance also. One what sir was talking about, dharma, Satya Dharma. I have recently defined, I'm from Vaishali, Bihar. Lord Buddha lived there for many years, and Lord Mahavir was born there. Both said they know what. Anishwarvad, to get it plus. I say God is there. So who is God? The sun, the moon, planets, the stars, earth and sky. They are God. And because of that power, we come on earth to do so many things to do. God is not something that, okay, if you go to a temple and say, oh, give me this one, and if he has given, that's all right. Otherwise, oh, no, he is not God. Dharma, we have defined that a thing which is common to all, including human beings, animals, and plants, which is that air, water, fire, and the production of grains and fruits and flowers, those you grow, you eating value, and then if you want treatment, you also have medicine from that plant. So they are for everybody on the planet. If he is a human being, so I say, this is dharma, this is religion. Otherwise, next time if you give me, I will go through details. In a separate lecture for that. And then, what is culture? The food mother gave you to eat, and the language she spoke to you, that is your culture. And that has grown in different places. So that group of people, they say, okay, Hindus say this is our faith, Muslims say our faith, Christians say our faith. So those things are faith. They are not a religion because they are applicable to a particular group. So dharma, dharma, Satya is everybody. So I say, in the governance, this has to be defined first. But okay, I leave it here, we understand. Next is, the fundamental thing, all are forgetting that governance, where is the problem? Nothing happens without a cause. And up to 7th century, and after that, after 7th century, to or 15th or 16th, governed by some other culture, other people, other language, and they were not good to you. Then the British came. They were not as hard persons against you, but still they also they, because of the interference, is my opinion, you have got this. So, at the time of freedom, the independence, two cultures, the persons who ruled you, who killed you, destroyed your culture, so it was decided, okay, this side, this culture, this side, this culture. You allowed these people to live in the country and allowed all the facilities to them. So, what happened? The animosity among the people, and that is still going on. So just I conclude by a small one-line story. the two brothers. Both had one son. So when they used to go to market, they used to bring something for both of them. One day, elder brother went and bought mangoes. While he was coming, what was happening usually, that when they used to go back home, so the son of the elder brother used to run this side, right side, and the son of elder brother left side. So on the way, he thought, my son will come this side. So he took a big mango in his hand, the right hand, and the left hand this little small mangoes. When he came, that day it happened reverse. So the elder brother's son came this side, and his son came that side. So what to do? So I just do my separate. He crossed. And the younger brother was looking for. He said, no, now we should be separate. We have forgotten. So the question is, at the time of independence, you are given opportunity that one culture, one this side, one culture, two sides. So homogeneity was there. But you allow religious known to the person's life, heterogeneity in this country. And if I am four brothers, and if you give some more to him, I will fight for that. It's a natural human being. So this is very important. Honorable Supreme Court gave judgment. You were not doing by legislature. So judiciary came and said, no, you have common civil court.
This is what his lordship.
Lordship was telling, yes.
Under which by executive, under which by legislature, that is interpreted as overreach by the judiciary.
And that opportunity you lost by amending the judgment.
I would say, I would ask his lordship to give his views on the uniform civil code.
So, yes, sir. That is, sir, that when you divide the property of a father among brothers, if you give equal, no fight. But if in a small, one thing you give to somebody, their fight continues. And this is going on. So what is important? The fundamental governance.
Yes.
You are not approaching there. And from outside, you are just, this happened, this should happen, this happen. So governance is very important. After all concerns, Mr. Bora said that we have progressed very well. Yes, nobody can deny it. But if you want to be peaceful, and you make law, one law, all land, one law. And that will help you. Judicial intervention has saved this country.
Yes.
Otherwise, what will happen?
There are criticisms also.
That is a part.
They've done a wonderful job.
There are many years. Now, one individual, there are judicial from DK Jain and Justice Lokul. They asked us whether you can feed Mother of Vrindavan. Judicial pronouncement from Supreme Court. Later it became Nalsa. So these are the judges, what do you want? I said, no, I will do it. And so I've done it. That is only by the judicial intervention by the Honorable Supreme Court. So that is what I feel. They should not be okay, very good people. I am not anyway. But judiciary has done wonderful, and I think some maybe, but without judiciary, the way legislators are behaving now, earlier was very good. 50 and 60, but now judiciary is not to work with the problem. So with this conclude, I say now, thank you. But next time, sir, with Dharma, I can give me chance to speak on that.
It was very illuminating that Agarwal sir will do. But at one stage, I'm Sanjay Sharan, I belong to Indian Revenue Service. I'm superannuated already to do some works here. I'm a GST master trainer because I got about 52,000 officers trained of central government, state government and UT before I retired. And then I also
Sorry.
no, it's okay. So before my retirement, I was at National Academy of Customs, Indirect Taxes and Narcotics, Faridabad. There I did, and then I also picked up so many areas for teaching. In fact, I teach on stress management. I have written a very good book by name Household Ascetic, which authentically answers, if you will agree with me, all the questions concerning life authentically. I'm trying to get it translated in Hindi. Maybe in the next 6 months, 7 months it will come. What I was saying, going forward from what you said, Mr. Dayal sir said. Passion, you rightly said, and then reducing the interface, you rightly said that. But one or two areas which I want to dwell upon is ethics and understanding also. There is a saying by saying, I heard, "Poot kapoot to kyo dhan si chut, poot sapoot kyo dhan si chut." Meaning thereby, if my son is bastard, is useless, why should I appropriate money? Why should I earn money? And if he's good, he will make himself. So why should I do that? So there is a lot which is required in the areas of ethics and understanding, and there our Ministry of Education, which is now HRDA, whatever we call it, they have to do it. Ethics, education and clarification. I have seen that young boys who are going through this UPSC, they are totally aiming on money making. Because they want to make it so fast, and they want to have postings and other things. These things are happening. Then how do we curtail, how do we as a nation, in very simple ways, address these issues? One is teaching of ethics, teaching of reality. As I said, that couplet, Put Kaput Wala and all. And then one area where we have simple areas, sir, where we are not there. We have multiple schools run by the government, private institutions, Christian institutions, Hindu institutions, these institutions. But we don't have any prayer for them. Can we not devise by way of law an innocuous prayer? And the prayer should say that we are a nation, we will make our nation, our forefathers have given their lives and blood to give our nation, and when we will grow up, we will work without corruption and we will work for making our country strong. This is, despite this simple thing, we don't have even now, and this should be made compulsory. And the children who will be reciting these prayers in their schools for a number of years, can you change them? You cannot. They will become members. And anybody who is trying to do that, they will not do that. They will not be able to do that. Another thing, at say higher secondary level and at graduation level, we are passing out, we get some type of degree. Still somehow the threats of nationalism in this country is not that strong as it should have been. North-South divide, East-West divide, this divide, that divide is still there. Why cannot we make a type of social work compulsory for somebody who's passing at say 12th class and at say graduation level for say 1 month, 2 months, and let him go. If somebody is from say north, let him go down south. Make it compulsory part unless you complete it and you do the compulsory work, social work, then you will not get your degree. What will happen? People will see that man of Bihar is coming and Tamil Nadu or Kerala and he's building roads and bridges and canals and he's planting trees. So there are certain, at one stage, sir, I made a study of that. I'm not forgetting because I was not prepared for that. But there are certain simple things which this country requires and which we should give it to the government and rather try to make sense to them through parliament and other ways, in which the nationalism, ethics, and also Rajesh ji, I was talking to him some days, he said, you make a paper, I could not make it that, we should give it to the HRD for ethics and some other stress management treatment. I teach on stress management also. Because I saw when I visited these schools, I found that they are teaching certain things on stress management, which is totally as per the model of, say, USB schools. But there are many important areas that is totally missing from there. Food management is missing, yoga is missing, clarification is missing. Then when I was working in National Academy of Customs and Taxes and Narcotics, then I picked up that and those things are included because without that you cannot do that stress management. So Rajesh ji, that day I was talking to him, he said that okay, you make a lecture and we give it to HRD and all. I said I will do that. Sorry Rajesh ji, I have not been able to do that. I regret for that.
Excellent suggestions, excellent thoughts.
So these things, so these are some small things we speak of big things. You spoke very well, sir, about interface. That remove the interface. Absolutely correct. That the government has been doing, DBT and etc. What is the government doing? And many areas, I got my license renewed, I stay in Delhi.
Without going anywhere.
And without going anywhere. I just have given a filled form and not even any paper also. And it was just renewal, it came to my house. Wonderful. So, these are certain things which if I recall, if sir will give me chance next time and he'll sensitize me that he can order me that Sanjay, you have to speak on this topic, I'll be coming. But very small things that we need to inculcate and bring in our system and should see that the children become so strong that they will not be buzzing before corruption or anything. And then other things, police requires a lot of reforms. Somebody was saying that somebody goes to police station and if he has some case, his FIR will not be registered. Police has to become somebody needs to get from police also. Police is required. Every other places, Mr. Alphonse was saying, other one, Mr. Gupta is a very good man, well-meaning man, they have all done it. But police side is still we are failing. All over India. Nobody will get justice.
Sanjay, thank you very much.
Sir, thank you, Mr.
First of all, for arranging this session on the most relevant topic on governance. Because ultimately all citizens are affected by governance. And therefore this topic is of utmost importance. My gratitude to you for having thought of the topic and arranging wonderful set of speakers.
ये आपकी सुझाव था?
I have the duty of thanking the speakers and unfortunately I have to thank three speakers rather in absentia. Shri Vora Saab and Ajay Tyagi ji and Mr. Alphonse had to go for reasons, but the House owes its gratitude to them. Vora Saab being a very seasoned administrator for decades together, had a lot of interesting points to make. And for me, the most important takeaway is, despite this, we have progressed a lot. And I think that makes the summary of the talk which he had. He also gave an example of a very small country, Singapore, which could become developed. There's no time to recount the incidents of Singapore, but I think to replicate Singapore should not be difficult if we make our mind on this, despite diversity, despite this, that. Then grateful to Justice Sharma for making very, very incisive comments. Outreach of judiciary, because of the reason of underreach of other organs, I think should be viewed positively always, even if it's outreach. I don't know really whether it's outreach or not, because I'm much below the subject of that. But even if it is called outreach only because others are reaching less than what they ought to. I remember, many of you will remember, there used to be a very famous cartoonist, Lakshman. He used to draw cartoons mainly on politicians, and some politician objected to this. He said, I wish you throw me out of the job. You do your work so well that I don't have no topic to draw the cartoons. Because you don't perform, I have lot of job to draw the cartoons, but I'm grateful to you for giving me money for those cartoons, but I really wish I become good. So I think judiciary might not have to do outreach if other organs reach. That is the takeaway of the meeting. Mr. Alphonse really gave examples of extraordinary passion and outreach at his level, which is remarkable, and how far one can succeed within the framework and all that could be a question mark at times, but yes, these are the things which do help at times, and his suggestion that rules have to be broken at times, I personally agree with, and I think any good administrator at times will have an opportunity to break the rule in the interest of social justice. I'll just tell one example. When I was Vice Chancellor of IP University, the University Act had a rule that you will be affiliated college provided you have a campus. It was a simple rule, made sense. DDA had a rule, you bring the affiliation from the university and then we'll give you land. Now, both rules made sense, but no college in Delhi would have come up if both these rules would have stayed. And I could not have the powers to move elephant like DDA. So I said, okay, you rent a building, I'll give you temporary provisional affiliation for 3 years, subject to the condition that you build a campus in 3 years. With that provisional affiliation, they all went to DDA, got the land, then built their campus, and 100 colleges in Delhi came up. Just because I had the conviction to, I won't say break the rule, but temper with the rule to some extent. So at times it could be very, very helpful, and personally I don't mind it. Then Mr. Tyagi talked about corporate governance in a very meaningful way. He raised very important subjects like institutional investors and voting policy and independent directors, which make a lot of sense these days. As far as governance is concerned, probably my experience is much less than all of these senior people, but I have believed only in one sentence: positive thought packaged with good common sense is good governance. And I believe it has carried me through and could be a useful thing. In addition to the speakers, I said positive thought packaged with good common sense is good governance. That has been my mantra and I have followed it all through. And in addition to the speakers, I think the discussions afterwards have been very, very illuminating, although we know that many of the people did not get enough time or opportunity to express themselves, but that is always supposed to be so in a gathering of this magnitude. I am grateful on behalf of the foundation to all the speakers and all the members who have attended it, and thank you all. Good night.